Imagine stepping out into the blinding sun of the Colosseum. The heat is suffocating, reflecting off the pale sand. And the sound is overwhelming, 50,000 Roman citizens roaring as one, like a living, breathing creature demanding blood. This isn't the kind of noise you hear in a sports stadium. This is older, heavier, hungrier. They're not here for entertainment in the modern sense. They're here to witness death. Your bare feet shift on the hot sand. There's no shade, no time to adjust. The sunlight cuts down like a blade, and every breath feels sharp in your chest. Your hands are shaking, though you don't even notice at first. You're staring at the gate opposite you, where another figure is about to emerge. A man forged in a world where mercy is weakness and hesitation is death. A Roman gladiator. This isn't a Hollywood reenactment. There are no safety mats, no special effects, no extra lives. When those gates open, fight begins, and it does not end until someone is broken or dead. You're standing in the most famous killing ground in human history. The Colosseum wasn't just a stadium. It was the beating heart of Roman power, a massive stone machine built to turn blood into spectacle. It could hold up to 80,000 people at its peak. The emperor sat in his royal box, nobles in marble rows. Commoners packed high into the stands. Every seat pointed down toward the sand toward you. In this arena, people didn't just die. They were erased, swallowed by the roar of the crowd. Your opponent is already a legend. Gladiators weren't just random criminals thrown into fights. Many were trained fighters, molded in ludi gladiator schools where every waking moment was dedicated to perfecting the art of killing. They trained with wooden swords twice as heavy as the real thing, not for show, but to make their real weapons feel like feathers in their hands. While you were growing up in comfort, these men were swinging blades that crushed bone, learning to move in armor that weighed as much as a modern child. Their training wasn't glamorous. It was pain, sweat, and repetition over and over, until their bodies forgot what fear felt like. The crowd knows it. That's why they're here. Not to watch a fair fight, but to watch someone die beautifully. The air inside the Colosseum isn't just hot. It smells like metal and sand and something darker. Centuries of blood have seeped into this ground. You can almost feel it, the weight of thousands who have fallen before you. The sand beneath your feet isn't just sand, it's a graveyard ground, turned over again and again with every spectacle. And now, it's your turn. The gate on the other side grinds open. Chains rattle. The crowd hushes for half a second, like the intake of a massive breath. And then he walks out. Your opponent is not a knight in shiny armor. He's lean, scarred, tan from years beneath the same unforgiving sun. His armor is practical, a segmented shoulder guard, a manacle on one arm, a greave on one leg, and a helmet shaped to turn him into something less than human and more like a predator. A curved blade glints in his hand. This is what he's lived for. This is what you've stumbled into. He doesn't posture. He doesn't roar. He just walks forward slow and steady, like a man who already knows the ending. The trumpet sounds. The match begins. You don't move. Not at first. Because in this moment, you finally understand what everyone before you has learned too late. This isn't a fight. It's an execution wearing the costume of sport. Gladiators weren't casual fighters. They were professional killers trained in some of the most brutal martial systems the world has ever seen. Their entire existence revolved around turning the human body into both a weapon and a shield. Training started the day they were bought or captured. Their mornings began with conditioning, running drills, striking posts, practicing with weighted wooden weapons designed to push their endurance to its breaking point. Their trainers, called doctores, were often retired gladiators themselves, men who had survived enough matches to know every angle of the arena. They taught footwork, balance, feints, the rhythm of combat. They didn't just train muscles, they trained instincts. Because inside the Colosseum, the difference between a reaction that takes one heartbeat and one that takes two is the difference between standing and bleeding out in the sand. And the Romans were precise about this. This wasn't a chaotic bloodbath. Gladiatorial combat followed a rhythm designed to keep the crowd on the edge of their seats. These fighters learned to make pain look elegant. They learned to die in ways that kept the people watching entertained. The Roman crowd was a force of nature. They cheered for violence with the same passion modern fans cheer for goals. A clean strike, a well-timed dodge. A show of strength, every move was a performance. A gladiator didn't just have to win, he had to win beautifully. And if he couldn't win, he had to die with enough drama to satisfy the mob. This wasn't a career. It was a sentence wrapped in applause. You might think modern athletes are tough, but modern athletes train for performance, for trophies, for medals. Gladiators train for life itself. When you step onto that sand, there's no scoreboard, no timeout, no safe word. It's not a game, it's a hunt. As you stand in that arena, your modern advantages dissolve. Your strength from the gym worthless. Your jogging routine irrelevant. None of that prepares you for someone who spent years learning how to kill quickly and efficiently. Gladiators drilled until their reflexes became something superhuman by modern standards. They read micro movements, the twitch of your wrist, the tightening of your chest, the angle of your weight on the sand. Those tiny tells become their map to end you before you've even decided what to do. Even their equipment is more deadly than it looks. Gladiator gear wasn't just armor, it was strategy. The curved blade of a Sika, the short stabbing gladius, the weighted net of a retiarius. Each weapon had its purpose, each designed to either trap, pierce, or bleed an opponent out in front of a roaring crowd. And unlike modern fighters, these men didn't fear pain. They lived in it. They trained through open wounds. They sparred in armor that bruised their ribs. They learned to block with their forearms. To endure strikes meant to break bones. Pain wasn't the enemy. Pain was the language of the arena. The gladiator moves closer. Every step he takes echoes like a hammer inside your chest. His eyes are invisible beneath the bronze visor. And that's worse because you can't read him. He can read you, though. Your breathing, the way your shoulders tighten. He can smell your fear the way a wolf smells blood. He doesn't rush you. He doesn't have to. He circles measuring. To him, this is just another day. To you, it's the end of everything you thought you understood about strength. The first attack isn't meant to kill, it's meant to test. He slashes low. Fast, faster than your body can react. The blade bites into the sand near your foot, close enough that you feel the wind of it against your skin. He smiles under the mask, though you can't see it. He's already decided how this ends. And that's the terrifying truth about the Colosseum. It wasn't built for balance, it was built for blood. The entire structure. From the way the sand was raked to the way the crowd was arranged served one purpose: to amplify violence. Every scream echoed. Every drop of blood spread across the sand like ink on parchment. The Romans called it Munera the Games, but it was never really a game. It was a ritual, a public reminder of Roman. Were trained in Ludi, specialized schools scattered throughout the empire. Behind the towering arena walls, far away from the eyes of the crowd, the transformation began. These schools weren't places of mercy. They were brutal factories of violence. New recruits were stripped of everything: their clothes, their names, their past. The only thing that mattered now was survival. Discipline was absolute. Weakness wasn't punished, it was removed. Training days started at dawn. There were no warm-ups, no gentle ramps. Men were thrown straight into endurance drills. Hours of footwork practice on uneven sand, repetitions of lunges, slashes, and blocks until their arms burned like fire. They swung wooden swords twice as heavy as their real weapons, not to build show muscles, but to create unbreakable efficiency. The philosophy was simple: if you can fight well tired, you'll be unstoppable when you're fresh. If you can swing heavy, the real blade will feel like air. This wasn't modern fitness. There was no hydration schedule, no energy drinks, no rest days. The only rest they got was the rest their trainers allowed, and that was rare. Pain was their teacher, and pain never missed a lesson. Each gladiator was also assigned a specific combat style. Rome was deliberate in how it staged its fights. Different styles made for better entertainment. A secutor was built like a tank, heavy armor, curved shield, short sword. A rhetorius was agile and fast-armed, with a trident and a net wearing little armor, but relying on speed. A Thraex, inspired by Thracian fighters, wielded curved blades designed to catch and tear. The crowd didn't just want fights, they wanted stories. Every match was a story: predator versus prey, brute strength versus cunning, speed versus endurance. And you wouldn't be a character. You'd be the opening act, the warm-up kill, the soft meat that makes the crowd's wine taste sweeter. Even the sand was designed against you. The ground inside the Colosseum was thick and uneven. Moving on, it drained strength faster than you'd expect. For trained fighters, it was a familiar battlefield. For you, every step would feel heavier. Every dodge would suck your energy dry. Meanwhile, your opponent has been trained to conserve energy with surgical precision. Every step is small, efficient, every breath measured, every motion practiced 1,000 times until it wastes nothing. And then there's the heat. The arena sun doesn't forgive. Under the bronze and steel, gladiators learned to fight while baking alive. Their lungs adapted, their skin hardened. Modern athletes train in air-conditioned rooms. These men trained under fire. The Romans understood something brutal. A man who can fight while suffering is more dangerous than a man who fights in comfort. Behind the glamour of the games, gladiator life was a paradox. They were slaves, criminals, prisoners of war, and yet some of them became celebrities. The most skilled fighters were household names in Rome. Crowds shouted for them, threw them garlands, carved their names into walls. Some were offered their freedom, the rudis, a wooden sword symbolizing retirement. Others died long before that day came. But for those who survived long enough to become stars, their fame was intoxicating. For many, it was the only thing they owned. But don't mistake fame for softness. The moment they stepped into the arena, they were still expendable. One bad fight, one unlucky hit, one moment of hesitation, and their names became blood on the sand. When your opponent strikes, you'll feel something most modern people never feel: the sheer, terrifying weight of a real blade swung by a man who lives to kill. The force behind a gladiator's attack isn't theatrical, it's calculated. Years of drilling have carved into his body the perfect ratio of power and precision. He doesn't waste movement. He doesn't swing wildly. He strikes exactly where you're weakest. You might raise an arm in panic. You might try to run. But the Colosseum isn't a place you can run from. There are no exits for you, only the roar of the mob and the sound of iron cutting through air. The Romans had a saying: fortes fortuna adiuvat. Fortune favors the strong. But in the arena, strength didn't mean size. It meant ruthlessness. To truly understand why you wouldn't last a lap, you have to understand the Roman mindset. This wasn't just entertainment. This was ritualized domination. The games reminded the people who ruled the world. Every cut, every scream, every death was a performance of Roman power. The gladiators were both weapons and messages. Rome could take anyone, a slave, a foreigner, a traitor, and turn them into a spectacle. And the crowd loved it. They screamed not for mercy, but for impact. The Roman mob learned to read a fight like a language. They knew the rhythms, the feints, the moments of weakness, the smell of blood. They weren't shocked by death, they were thrilled by it. When a gladiator fell, the crowd didn't gasp. They leaned forward, they wanted the finish. The infamous polis versus the turn of the thumb wasn't a myth. If the crowd decided you didn't deserve mercy, the victor would end it right there, in front of everyone. One thrust, one splash of blood, the sand would drink it in, and then the games would move on like you never existed. The Colosseum didn't remember losers, it buried them. Meanwhile, your opponent is perfectly at home. This is his stage, this is his language. He's fought dozens of times, he's survived, he knows where to place his feet, how to draw your eyes away from the real strike, how to make every second of your panic work in his favor. Gladiators were masters of psychology. They didn't just overpower their enemies, they broke them from the inside out. The way they walked to the way they circled, the way their blade tapped against their shield, all of it was designed to make you feel smaller. You'd start breathing too fast. Your shoulders would lock. Your reaction time would slow, and he would be watching, always watching. Some modern people imagine they'd put up a fight, that they'd go down swinging, that they'd get lucky. But luck dies fast in the Colosseum. Gladiators didn't give their opponents time to adjust. The moment they smelled fear, they struck like wolves, swift, precise, merciless. Every second you spent trying to understand what's happening would be a second they used to close the distance. Your heart might be racing, your adrenaline pumping, but adrenaline doesn't make you faster than training. It doesn't make you stronger than a lifetime of brutality. It doesn't make your skin thicker than steel. Because of the sound, 50,000 people screaming isn't just noise. It's a living force. It gets inside your chest. It shakes your bones. It swallows your thoughts. In a modern stadium, the crowd cheers for their team. Here they cheer for blood. They don't care about your fear, your pain, or the fact that your hands are trembling. The only thing they care about is that you put on a good show before you die. And if you don't, someone else will. The Colosseum was built to amplify everything. The stone walls catch the sound of the mob and throw it back into the arena like a tidal wave. Every scream, every chant, every gasp hits you all at once. There's no escaping it. You're surrounded, trapped in the center of Rome's hunger. Your opponent doesn't even look at the crowd. He doesn't need to. He's used to this noise. It fuels him. It drowns out pain, sharpens his instincts, and turns the arena into something familiar, a stage he knows better than you know your own neighborhood. For him, this isn't chaos, it's rhythm. He's fought here before. He knows how the sound of the crowd swells when someone bleeds. He knows how to time his attacks to ride that wave, to give them exactly what they want. He's not just fighting to survive, he's performing. And that's what makes him so much more dangerous. Modern combat sports happen in weight classes. Fighters are matched by size, age, skill. There are rules, referees, medics waiting outside the ring. You can tap out, you can walk away. The Colosseum doesn't care about fairness. It doesn't care about you. If the crowd wants spectacle, they'll give you a man twice your size with armor heavier than you can lift. If they want speed, they'll give you a fighter so fast you'll barely see the blade before it cuts you. And if they want comedy, they'll send in someone just good enough to humiliate you slowly. The only rule that mattered was that someone had to bleed. Gladiators weren't superheroes. They were men, but men forged under pressures that would break most people today. Their physical conditioning was only half the equation. The real weapon was psychological. They learned to turn fear into fuel. They learned to thrive in an environment built to crush the human spirit. The arena sun, the pain, the heat, the noise, these things don't weaken him. They make him stronger. But for you, they're already wearing you down. Your breath comes shorter now. The sand feels heavier. Your vision narrows. You're not injured yet, but your body is starting to understand this isn't a fair fight. It's a slow collapse. Your opponent sees it. He's trained to see it. That slight change in the way your shoulders sag, that shift in your stance, the way your breath comes through your mouth instead of your nose, those are signals, silent flags that tell him exactly when to strike. And then he moves. The blade cuts the air with a whistle. He doesn't rush like someone in a movie. He advances with measured precision, feet sliding through the sand with practiced ease. Every step is small, efficient. He's conserving energy, waiting for the exact moment to break you. The first strike comes low again, not to kill, just to draw blood. A shallow slash across the calf. It burns, you stumble. The crowd erupts like a beast that just smelled fresh meat. It doesn't matter how small the wound is. They love it. The pain is hot and sharp. But what hits harder is the panic. Your brain screams, move. Your body freezes. For a modern mind, this kind of violence isn't something you can process fast enough. It short circuits everything. You look down at the wound. Just for a second, but that's all he needs. He lunges forward, shield raised, blade flashing. You backpedal unsteady. The sand slips beneath your feet. You can't find traction. He doesn't stop. Every strike he throws is part of a language he spent years learning. Every parry and lunge fits together like pieces of a puzzle you've never seen before. You're not fighting a person. You're fighting an entire culture of killing. The Romans perfected this. Gladiatorial combat wasn't random brutality. It was choreography with real consequences. Every match was designed to escalate, to build tension, to keep the crowd invested. A skilled gladiator didn't kill his opponent right away. That would end the show too quickly. Instead, he controlled the tempo. He drew it out, made it beautiful, made it horrifying. That's what's happening to you now. You're being turned into a performance. The crowd cheers when you stumble. They cheer when he lands another slash across your side. Not too deep, just enough. They want you to suffer first, to gasp, to bleed, to make the ending sweeter. And your opponent, the man in front of you, is a master at delivering that moment. Your legs are shaking now, not because of the cut, but because your body has realized it can't win. That instinct sits deeper than logic. It spreads through your limbs like ice, and the gladiator can smell it. And then comes the moment every fighter in this arena fears. The crowd shifts. You don't see their faces clearly, but you can feel the energy change. They lean forward. Their roars blend into something primal. They've decided it's time. They want the kill. This is the psychological weapon of the Colosseum when 50,000 people want you dead. It's not just your opponent you're fighting anymore. It's the weight of the empire itself. The crowd pushes the fight toward its end without lifting a single finger. You can't think clearly anymore. The noise eats your focus. Every breath is a desperate gulp. The gladiator advances again. His steps are steady. Your world is collapsing into a tunnel of heat, blood, and noise. If this were a modern fight, someone would step in, a referee, a medic, a friend. But here, mercy doesn't exist. The only mercy comes from the victor, and he has no reason to give it. Gladiators sometimes spared opponents when the crowd begged for mercy. But that mercy had to be earned. You had to give them a good show. You had to make them believe your death would be a loss worth mourning. And right now, you're not giving them anything. You're just another anonymous body in the sand. You drop to one knee. The cut in your leg is bleeding more than you expected. The sun stings your eyes. Sweat drips into the wound. Your heart is pounding so hard it drowns out everything else. He walks toward you, slow, deliberate, blade at his side. He knows it's over. The crowd knows it's over. The only one still pretending is you. It's easy to romanticize gladiators as mythical figures, noble warriors in shining armor. But reality was far more brutal. They were specialists in making death efficient. Their strikes targeted arteries, lungs, the space between ribs, places where a single cut could end a man in seconds. Archaeologists have found the proof skeletons bearing symmetrical wounds, precise strikes through soft tissue clean cuts where armor ended. These weren't wild brawls. These were executions with style. And now you're on the receiving end of that same history. Your breathing grows shallow, your hands tremble. And even though the crowd is louder than anything you've ever heard, everything suddenly feels quiet. This is what the Colosseum did best. It made your death feel small. There's a strange, cold beauty in it. For Rome, death wasn't a tragedy. It was theater. Every scream was a note, every sword swing a line in the play, and the people in the stands weren't horrified, they were entertained. A good death could make the victor famous. A bad death would be forgotten before the blood dried. The sand would be raked, the next fighters would enter, and your body would be dragged away like a broken prop. You'd be forgotten in minutes. The crowd doesn't care about your name. They care about the sound your blood makes when it hits the ground. This was the Roman Empire's true genius. It didn't just conquer lands. It conquered people's attention. It turned death into a show so powerful that it made ordinary citizens complicit in the brutality. The games reminded them that Rome was untouchable, that life was cheap, that fear was entertainment, and the gladiator. He was both weapon and message. You're kneeling now, the sun above the sand below and a blade somewhere in between. And no matter what happens next, you're not walking out of this arena the way you came in. That's the quiet truth behind the roar of the Colosseum. You were never meant to win. You were meant to bleed. The gladiator stands a few feet away. You're kneeling now, one knee in the sand, your breath ragged, the heat pressing down like a physical weight. The noise of the crowd doesn't fade. It grows sharper, more focused. They know the story's about to end. To them, you're not a person. You're the moment before the final strike. This is how every fight ends here. Not with some epic comeback, not with cinematic glory. It ends with one fighter collapsing into the dust and the other lifting a weapon for the crowd to judge. You've reached the point where you're not even part of the decision anymore. You're just the body on the ground. The gladiator raises his blade, slightly turning to the stands. He doesn't need to shout. He doesn't need to speak. The crowd decides. Their gestures, a raised thumb, a turned thumb, a wave of hands, are a ritual older than memory. Sometimes it's mercy, more often it's death. The emperor might lift a hand, a finger, or do nothing at all. It doesn't matter. Everyone knows what's coming. You can feel the blood dripping from your leg onto the sand. It blends in perfectly with the stains that have been here for generations. Thousands of others have knelt exactly where you are, under the same sun, facing the same silence before the final roar. And this is the truth that makes the Colosseum unlike any other place in history. Death here wasn't personal. It was routine. No one in the stands will remember your name. No one will speak of your struggle. No one will write poems about how you fought bravely. The sand will swallow your story just like it did the hundreds of thousands before you. Rome built this place to be a machine, and machines don't remember their fuel. But to understand how completely this world would crush you, you have to understand the mindset that shaped it. The Roman Empire was built on discipline, violence, and spectacle. Its rulers knew the power of fear not just on the battlefield, but in the hearts of its own citizens. Gladiatorial combat wasn't a sideshow. It was the psychological theater of empire. It reminded the people of their dominance. It reminded the conquered of their place. And it reminded everyone that Rome decided who lived and who died. The gladiators were the instruments of that message. Living, bleeding propaganda. Their strength was legendary, but it was their obedience to the spectacle that made them terrifying. For the audience, death wasn't shocking. It was expected. It was woven into the rhythm of Roman life. They cheered when men died. They laughed when they fell. They demanded more blood when the sand turned dark. This wasn't cruelty for its own sake. It was order. It was control. And you soft modern, untrained were never meant to survive inside that order. The gladiator turns back toward you. He doesn't hesitate. Hesitation has no place here. His face is hidden behind iron and leather, but you can feel his certainty. He's done this before. He's ended lives before. To him, this isn't personal either. It's just another match, another show. You try to stand, but your legs won't listen. The sand drags you down like quicksilver. The pain in your side throbs in time with your heartbeat. Your breathing is shallow and uneven. This is what modern strength can't prepare you for. This moment, the moment when everything you've ever trained for means nothing. You can be strong in the gym. You can run miles on a track. You can throw punches in a controlled environment, but nothing modern compares to standing in a pit designed to turn human beings into performances. The gladiator lifts the blade. If the crowd wants mercy, rare, unpredictable mercy, he'll lower it. Maybe you'll live, but not as a hero. You'll be dragged out of the arena like a broken doll, patched up just enough to fight again. And next time, you'll bleed faster. If they want death, and they usually do, he'll strike. And when he does, it will be fast. Precise, thought, final. The kind of strike that has been practiced 1,000 times, designed to silence screams in a single breath. This is what separates you from him. You fear this moment. He was built for it. And when the blade comes down, everything slows. The crowd's roar blurs into a wall of sound. The sun flashes against the metal for the briefest instant. The air feels thick, like it's holding its breath with you. And then nothing. Just the weight of Rome pressing down. The sand will absorb your blood like it has absorbed the blood of hundreds of thousands. In a few minutes, workers will rake the ground, smooth it over, and the next fighters will enter. The story will continue without you exactly as it has for centuries. That's the thing about the Colosseum. You're not the main character. You're just another chapter in its endless book of death. But here's what makes this history truly chilling. This wasn't rare, it was daily life. In its prime, the Colosseum hosted games that lasted for weeks. Entire festivals of death. Wild animals from across the empire were brought in: lions, leopards, bears, elephants. Prisoners and slaves were fed to them in the mornings. Gladiators fought in the afternoons. Executions filled the spaces in between. The crowd didn't grow numb. They grew addicted. This was their entertainment, their news, their cultural heartbeat. Rome was built on the backs of men like the one standing over you. Men who lived their entire lives knowing that each fight could be their last. Men who turned death into a craft. And what about you? The truth is, your modern body isn't built for this. Your reflexes aren't trained for it. Your endurance isn't forged in blood. Your mind isn't conditioned to face a crowd that wants to see you die. You live in a world of safety rules and mercy. They lived in a world where death was part of the schedule. Even the strongest athletes of today would crumble here. It's not about strength. It's not about speed. It's about tolerance for pain, for heat, for fear, for the sound of 50,000 people demanding your end. You wouldn't last a lap, not because you're weak, but because they were something else entirely. The Colosseum wasn't just a building, it was a weapon. It took everything that made